Nice seeing how everyone is so happy for each other. It's not something to be taken for granted. It's it's really, really beautiful. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so last week we spoke about the midah of being an emesdike person, really being truthful, and not just as opposed to lying to people, but to be truthful with ourselves in what we're doing, why we're doing it, what are our intentions when we go about doing something, and a whole bunch of you came over in person and some messaged me afterwards saying, so how do you figure out if what's motivating you and what's driving you is a certain bias? How do we know? We're in it, we're doing our thing, we hope we're being truthful, but how do we know if it's really being moved by bias? How do we know if it's a negia, as they say in Hebrew? There's something touching me, there's something pushing me that's not truthful for me to go ahead and do what I want to do. So I want to share with you two different biases that sometimes cloud our vision, don't allow us to move forward, and how we could go ahead and fix that and move forward. Okay, so the first one is based on a fascinating insight by the Ran. The Ran was one of the greatest Rishonim, and besides being in the back of our Gemaras, the Ran also has something called the Drushos Haran. Different sermons that he gave that's written up. Now they actually translated it by ArtScroll, so it used to be a little hard to read, but now there's really no excuses. So in Drush number 3, he says the following idea. The Gemara tells us in Maseches Nedarim and Daf Lamed Ches that for a navi, to be a navi, he needs a few different qualities. For example, he has to be knowledgeable, he has to be strong, he has to be wealthy, he has to be modest, he has to be an anav. And the Rambam writes in Hilchos Yesodei Torah in the 7th parak, the Rambam says that Gemara doesn't really mean physical qualities. It doesn't really mean that you have to be wealthy. It doesn't really mean that you have to be knowledgeable or strong. That's not what it means. Well, a navi is a holy Jew, someone who's speaking to Hashem. It's like literally direct communication. What's the difference if the guy worked out? And I'm saying, well, why should that matter? So the Rambam says that's not what it means. What it really means is what it says in Pirkei Avos. Ezehu Gibor, who's someone who's strong. Hakovesh Yisrael, someone who could restrain, he could hold himself back when his Yetzer Hara is telling him to go ahead and do something and he holds back. That's the strength that we're talking about. What's it mean that someone's wealthy, that the Gemara says? Ezehu Ashir, someone who's wealthy, the Mishnah says. Hasamech B'chalko, he's happy with his lot. That's what it means. It didn't really mean that his bank account or his pockets are bulging from huge amounts of cash. What it really means is that he's samech b'chalko, and that's what he goes through all of these different midot, these character traits, and that's what the Gemara means for this holy, holy navi to be able to talk to Hashem. But the Ran says a different explanation. The Ran says that actually it's referring to physical qualities. What? Physical qualities? Who cares if the navi is strong or the navi's tall? Why should that matter? So the Ran says something very fascinating. He says that the navi is a leader, right? The navi is receiving these messages from Hashem, and then he has to be able to communicate that to the people. And for that to actually work, the people have to listen to the navi, right? And he says that people have a bias. Listen to this and listen to this good. The Ran said this almost 1,000 years ago. That people have a bias that when they're listening to someone speak, they often decide if they're going to believe what the person's saying, listen to what the person's saying, receive the messages based on their physical qualities. So you could have this motivational speaker that literally could speak strong and loud and excellent vocabulary, and he's animated, and he's like, and you walk out and like, wow, that was amazing. Whoa, bring him in more. Say, really? What did he say? Not really sure. What do you mean not sure? You just told me it was the most amazing speech you ever heard in your life. Yeah, but I can't remember what he said. Because you get totally sucked in by some of the externals that we already decide that it's amazing, etc. That people often look at the externals. Believe it or not, there was a study done on the Fortune 500 CEOs. Their height. How tall are the Fortune 500 CEOs? Okay, almost all of them were above average. Okay, so for all of you that are tall over here, I'll ask you for a donation one day. Now, okay, so people, for some reason, and there's a whole study based on that, that for some reason people think that the leader the one that's going to be successful in business, that's going to be able to lead an organization, are the people that are tall. When you see that person that's tall, we automatically think, there's a secular book, goes through this entire study, that we automatically gravitate to this person, that this person is really going to be able to make things happen. Obviously, it's ridiculous. The person has no business past, he doesn't have experience, doesn't really know what he's doing, but he's tall. So what? And the same thing is people that are good looking and certain other people that have other features. Like, we gravitate to those people. We think that they're the ones that are going to be able to guide us and show us what's right. The Ran explains that that's what the Gemara means, that the Navi had to have certain physical external qualities, not because it makes him holier, not because it makes him a better person, not because Hashem likes that, but rather because in order for him to influence the people, people have a bias that the second they look at someone, they already make a very quick decision on how they are going to receive the information that's coming out of that person's mouth. And the Ran tells us something beyond amazing. The Ramban already asks the following question. If it's true that the leader has to be so great, how could it be that Moshe Rabbeinu had a speech impediment? Right? Moshe was the greatest leader of all time. Anyone that wants to speak about leadership from the Torah, you study Moshe, right? And Moshe had a speech impediment. How could that be? So the Ramban gives two different answers why Hashem didn't cure Moshe and left that speech impediment. But the Ran says a third answer. The Ran says, you know why Hashem left that speech impediment? Because if Moshe Rabbeinu would have been an excellent orator, if he would have been an awesome speaker, so generations from then, meaning today, we'd say, oh, do you know why the Jewish people accepted the Torah from Moshe? Because he was a blowaway speaker. He just knocked them out. They were sitting there like, wow, we got to accept this thing. Similar, lahavdil to Hitler. Hitler, Yamach Shemo, had this captivating way of him that people just followed the guy. He might not have known anything, but he just pulled people into a terrible, terrible, destructive movement. So people would say, thousands of years later, they'd say, oh, do you know why people listened to Moshe? It's not because the Torah was true. It wasn't because Hashem really was there. It was because Moshe was the best speaker ever. So Hashem left him with a speech impediment so that no one would ever be able to think that the reason the Torah was accepted was because of Moshe. Moshe was just barely being able to give this thing over, couldn't even speak. It was really because everyone saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu so clearly. So bias number one is that we rely on our first impressions too quickly. When we're in a conversation with someone, immediately, within the first few seconds, we are already analyzing whether this is going to go for us or not go for us. Are we going to listen or are we not going to listen? Are we going to ignore this person or not? Are we going to go ahead and run the other direction or are we going to sit there? We're already locked in within the first few seconds. That is a bias that plagues everyone. It plagued people at the times of Matan Torah. And that's why Hashem had to make sure that Moshe wasn't a good speaker. It is part of human nature, and it's something that we all have to realize that we have. And therefore, the first step, the first bias to try to get rid of is to recognize that and to be more patient. When we're listening, when we're hearing things from people, when we're experiencing certain situations, we have to give it time. We don't want to jump to conclusions because a person made a quick elevator pitch. Elevator pitches are worthless. They're there because it's known that people are going to get hooked in with 2 seconds. That's not the way it is. It's to sit there and to listen and to analyze and to think, what do I really think? What's this person really about? Is this person really honest? Is this person really good? Should I listen to this person? I'm reading something. Is this person totally steering me in a biased way? Like, we have to think. You need time. If you don't give yourself time to experience things and immediately you're making judgments very, very quickly, that first bias is going to throw us off from everything. That's number one. Number two, very often there are external biases based on peer pressure. people are coming at us with many, many different emotions and energies and feelings. And like I mentioned last week, sometimes we're going to say, if I do this, I will get this. More guys are going to be into me if I go ahead and do this. If I go do this, then people look at me in a funny way. So we do have to take into consideration, what our environment is. But we have to remember, are these expectations that are being set by my environment, who set those expectations? Were they people that sat down and said, what would be good for David Rosman? Okay, let me create this environment for him. Or no, it just happened. Or it just happened by a bunch of people that maybe they're not even thinking what's best for them in life. What drew them to create the environment that we're sitting in? And therefore, when we are sitting in something, we have to always remember and be thinking, why am I trying to accomplish what it is? What's pushing me? Okay, there's an important idea of chevra. And I'll tell you right now, the greatest chaverim that you're going to have, that I have to this day, are the people that I grew with. People that I learned Torah with, people that grew in midos development. The people that I grew in my life with, even if I don't speak to them as much nowadays, but they're my closest people. When you grow together, that's what it is. You want to make sure that the people that you're surrounding yourself with are ones that are going to help you with your growth. They're going to push you forward. They're going to allow you to be happy long-term in life. They're there for you to have the word chaver, also means chibur. It means to connect. It's a real connection, a real glue that allows you to move together with them. That is our goal. And you have to make sure that anything else that's out there, we're not just doing it because it's the thing to do. So bias number 2 are external environment types of biases. Now the third point that I want to bring out, and that is, so how do I know though, right? How can I tell if it's this bias or that bias, and how am I true to myself? So the greatest way to work on biases, and this is something that I've worked on my entire life, it's helped me, I'm going to say that it has saved me, and that is having a Rebbe. Having an external person, a mentor, it could be a parent, it could be an older sibling, someone that's been there and done that. From the outside, that could look, sometimes when we have a bias, that's clouding our ability to see things clearly, right? That's what a bias does, right? But if someone from the outside that isn't inherently and intimately involved in what I'm going through right now, I could go ahead and seek advice from them. I could say, look, this is my situation, this is what I'm feeling. Sometimes I know for myself, like when I go speak to my Rebbe, and I try to go speak to him a lot, when I go talk about, there's a real emergency situation, I need a meeting now. And then we go ahead and we sit down, and I start saying my problem, and I'm like, by the end, I'm like, I don't even need you. See ya, I figured it out. As I'm saying it out, I'm like, that made no sense. I'm totally biased in my reasoning. Sometimes just speaking it out with someone that you know is going to be able to reflect back is already helpful, but sometimes that's not enough. And then you go here and hear from the person, and the person says, could it be that this is driving you? Could it be that's driving you? Do you really think that that's true? It is extremely, extremely, extremely healthy and helpful for us to have that in our lives. Of people that could always be checking and double checking with us, someone outside of, again, they're not intimately related to my situation. There's someone from the outside that I'm able to go to and trust and listen to. You're not going for a halacha. Tell me a halacha. It's not a halachic thing. It's like the Chazal tell us, marba eitza, marba tfuna. Going and seeking advice allows you to be wiser. It allows us to hear another opinion, someone that's not in me, to be able to go ahead and drive us. This is something that has helped me. I know it's helped many, 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 many people. I find people that don't have that actually suffer. They get lost. Someone reached out to me yesterday, and Baruch Hashem, he's married and has older kids already, and he said, I need someone that's helping me with parenting in my life. That's what he said. I said, if you know someone that can help me. So I said, look, what are the issues that we're talking about? And everything that he said was not complicated. I have all those same issues with my kids, every single one of them. There was nothing extreme. But he didn't have someone that could just, from the outside, in his world, he thinks it's the most extreme situation in the world because he's the parent. Someone from the outside that could also tell him, by the way, this is normal. And this is what you could do. This is a very, very easy technique. This is someone that you could speak to about this, speak to about that. But someone from the outside sometimes could diffuse all of the emotional energy that is existing in your decision process in you moving forward. So it is an extremely, extremely helpful. I don't think it's just like an added benefit. I think it's actually crucial in being able to be matzliach, to be able to find that Rebbe, to find that person that you could trust. Again, it could be a parent. It could be someone, again, older and have been there and done that they can help us see our own biases to help us move forward and to help us be the most successful that we could be. So if we could be a little more patient, not to jump at certain situations just because of the way we see it in the first few seconds. 2, not to jump at things because of external friendly pressure. And 3, to activate external help. That doesn't mean that you have an issue if you have people to help you. It means you're a smart person that is looking for help. Very, very successful people pay lots of money to have coaches. Not because there's something wrong with them, but because they want to be even better. Okay? Someone external could always help us navigate challenges and make us the most successful people that we could be. We should all be zocha, to be the most emesdike of people that we could be, to cling to Hashem's midah of emes.